Very happy to welcome my guest, Jay Dyer, and I'll go ahead and read the little bio here for you, just as a quick introduction in case you aren't aware of his work. Of course, you can follow him on Twitter at J_D007. His website is jaysanalysis.com. Jay Dyer is an author, comedian, TV presenter known for his deep analysis of Hollywood, geopolitics, and culture. His graduate work focused on psychological warfare and film, and he's the author of 2 books, Esoteric Hollywood 1 and 2, and the co-creator and co-host of the television show Hollywood Decoded. He's been featured on numerous popular shows and podcasts and in debates with some of the world's top debaters. Quite a resume there. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Jay.
Thank you, Harrison. Pleasure to be here. I like your show.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to calls. It's going to be wild.
Yeah, we got a couple calls with questions for Jay, and we'll get to those in just a second. But first, I just wanted to ask you, sort of for my own personal edification, what your path has been like. Because you've been involved, you've been sort of a fixture in the alternative news world for a long time. I first became aware of you because of the esoteric Hollywood stuff, sort of exposing the symbolism and the mind control that's carried out in our mainstream media and especially our popular culture. But what's been your path and what's your focus now? And just sort of how have you grown as a decoder of the esoteric world?
My path was, I was raised Christian, sort of nominal Baptist kind of Christian. And then I got pretty wild in high school and partied a lot, and then decided that was a little too much, needed to tone it down a little bit, scale it back. And so I went to college and studied philosophy. Mm-hmm. When I was in college, I studied film and philosophy. And I started noticing, just being a film buff, that a lot of stuff that was in movies was also kind of real. Like you would notice patterns and things that happen in the real world that were very similar to what was in fiction and film. And I started wondering why that is. And I had some favorites that I was into in high school. Like I really liked Mel Gibson's conspiracy theory. So that kind of set me on the path, and I was always a big fan of The Godfather and mafia movies. And if you have that kind of an attitude, then you're kind of skeptical, I guess, already of authority,
Right. Yeah.
Way sure. That. And then, so I started, one of the first papers I wrote was about the mafia, and I looked into how they were related to intelligence agencies, and the CIA had actually helped the mafia in many cases in history. And that just kind of led me down a rabbit hole in college of studying the next phase, which is psychological warfare. And that's right around the time that I stumbled on Alex's Bohemian Grove stuff. And then I found a clip of him critiquing Skull and Bones. I was like, what's Skull and Bones? Right. I found Anthony Sutton's book and I read that. And that led me down just another rabbit hole of trying to connect the intelligence world, espionage, history with fiction, with movies. And the more I dove into that and the more I saw that it's really just like one big, interconnected, rubber, it's like a rubber band ball full of conspiracy.
And it's why we can seem crazy sometimes, because it's like, okay, these things don't seem connected, exactly. but when you get a sort of holistic understanding of it all, they're all very intricately interconnected, actually.
Yeah, I remember the first time I came across the connections between Hollywood and intelligence agencies, I thought it was crazy. I was like, what? I mean, it's just people who make movies and want to make money, right? That's the typical response that you get from people is, people just want to make money.
Yes.
As if there's never a higher goal than making money. Well, some people, especially people that print the money, they don't have the goal just of making the money, right?
They literally have all of the money. So like making money.
They make the money.
Right.
They don't need to make money. And so, I got into studying Bond, Fleming, that whole nexus.
Right.
And then I realized that I'm writing for academia. I'm writing for an audience that's never going to read this. Right? Because if you write a master's thesis or PhD, it just sits there in a library. Nobody reads it. Right. Except an advisor or whatever. So I got sick of academia, decided I want to be a professor, and then I just moved into trying to do media. I was always inspired by the way Alex did his own media. And I thought, I'm going to try to do that. I'd rather do that than work as a wage slave, at some place. And so
it's a risky move.
It was a risky move, but it worked out. So that was, 10 years ago, started trying to do that. And it took several years, but then finally kind of coalesced into talking about whatever I find interesting. And that happened to be not just movies and symbolism and intelligence agencies, but also then it sort of branched out into, I want to talk about philosophy, right? I mean, studied a lot of that in college, and I think it's pretty interesting. And then that branched into theology. I want to talk about, religion, the history of the church, that kind of stuff. So then that branched into just debates, which I didn't actually expect to happen, but the certain atheists started reaching out. Hey, will you debate me? Let's do a debate. And then that, again, it just kind of snowballs, right?
Yeah.
It turns into where it is now. But yeah, it's been a wild journey.
Well, you're riding that wave. And now I know your big thing is orthodoxy, right? You're Orthodox Christian, and you do a lot of debates with atheists or Catholics or anybody or Muslims as well, about Orthodox Christianity. And I know some of my best friends are Orthodox Christian, Greek Orthodox from the Middle East and stuff. And I've always been very attracted to that realm of Christianity. I grew up Episcopalian, but it seemed to me like everything my friends believed from the Orthodox Church seemed right on. It just seemed correct. And, you know, just from my own personal experience, I was always sort of attracted to that. So I have friends of mine are always sending me your videos, your debates and things like that, because they feel like you're a really powerful voice and one of the only voices really expressing, you know, the Orthodox theology out there in the world. So what attracted you to that, and how does that relate into the mind control and the, you know, all that sort of stuff? Well,
being raised Baptist, I had an appreciation for Protestantism and for the Bible. But in my early 20s, I got really deep into church history and the church fathers and how the Bible came to be. And that kind of led me into reading Catholic stuff. And back in the early 2000s, there wasn't a whole lot of online resources as there are today about this kind of stuff. So in my mind at that time, it was just kind of a Catholic Protestant level debate.
Right.
And so I had a long period throughout my 20s and early 30s where I was in the traditional Catholic world. I got really into Thomas Aquinas and that kind of medieval scholastic approach. And then once you get in the Catholic world, you're confronted with Vatican II and the modern liberalism of Pope Francis and John Paul II. And so you have to kind of deal with that. And so I tried for many years to make that work. And really what solved it for me was just looking at the first 1,000 years of Christianity. How did they operate? How did the church operate? What did it look like? Because for me, that would be authentic Christianity, right?
Right.
Because between the East and the West, for the 1,000 years, the first 1,000 years, they're the same, more or less, right? So that's the question I think resolves the issue between Orthodox and Roman Catholic. I wasn't really interested in the Protestant world anymore. But, you know, I still have appreciation for a lot of Protestant debaters and theologians. Dr. Greg Bahnsen's a big hero of mine. He was a famous debater who would destroy atheists back in the 90s. And but I just felt like there was something missing. And so got into Orthodoxy about 8 or 9 years ago. I didn't immediately convert. I studied it for a long time. And then finally,
it's a process to convert even. Yeah, you have to go through a bunch of stuff. Yeah,
depending on who it is.
And so what is the role of Orthodoxy now moving forward, and what can it offer to the modern world? Because I know, like I said, a lot of my friends are Orthodox, and they're like it's the only solution. They're like, all the Christians around the world, we need to come under one church so we can all be sort of a unified front against what we see around us, which is this pretty open Satanism attempting to destroy all the churches piecemeal. We need to all come together. What's the role of Orthodoxy, do you think, in the modern world?
I think that is the authentic expression of Christianity. That's not to deride people that aren't Orthodox, but just simply to say that I think that Orthodoxy is what has the fullness of Christianity. And I think that it represents, because it's not just a focus on the political, right? Not to deride the political, it's important. But I kind of think there's higher level things that kind of influence the political sphere. And, you know, there's the family sphere and there's the, you know, all these different spheres of life. But that spiritual sphere is really what dictates, and I think is the most important. That's why I kind of focus on that realm most of the time in my debates and my talks nowadays. But I think that Orthodoxy represents the best hope for resistance because it has this notion of a balance between the particular and the common, so one of the many. And by that I mean that you can retain your who you are, your tradition, at the same time as being linked to other people with common principles and ideologies. And so there's a balance there. You're not like forced all the way over into some kind of like collectivism at the same time as you're not forced all the way over into some atomistic, anarchic individualism.
Right.
There's a balance there that's really the heart of the whole system, philosophically speaking.
And when it comes to the political, I've seen the occasional, and you actually were talking about it in a video that was sent, and we played the video yesterday, a Catholic, I guess, bishop or a Catholic priest talking about the mark of the beast, talking about how we're up against evil. But to me, it's mostly the Orthodox that are actually saying, hey, this is the mark of the beast that we're facing. We have to stand up against this, where it seems like Protestants don't even know and are just going, you know, full force into this world of evil. So we'll talk about all of it and more and take your calls. It's Jay Dyer, jaysanalysis.com is the website. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's American Journal. Jay Dyer is my guest. You can find him on Twitter at J_D007 and his website, jaysanalysis.com. Now, you mentioned James Bond and Ian Fleming. Does that inspire your 007 moniker here on Twitter?
Silly. And I mean, back when I started Twitter years and years ago, I didn't even think about it being like a media thing. I was just being silly. So I don't think I'm 007.
We'll see. All right, we're going to go out to your phone calls. People have some questions for Jay, and we'll toss the mic over to him as soon as you get your questions in. And we've done this a few times, and it's worked pretty well because the callers have been very concise and insightful, and then we let our guest take over. So let's go to Scott in Texas, who has a question about Bill Gates. Thanks for calling in, Scott. You are on the air with Jay Dyer.
Gil Bates.
Gil Bates. Scott, are you there?
Pleasure to speak to both of you gentlemen.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, Jay, I loved you on Grand Theft World a couple weeks ago. That was awesome. I just realized Richard Grove's been around for a while. So that was pretty interesting watching y'all two come about. My point was about a lady called in on the War Room a few months ago and was talking about a Bill Gates little, he was like introducing the God gene and how to eradicate it to the Pentagon. I just wanted to let everyone know that the Corbett report, James Corbett did an amazing job and fact-checked it, and it's all fake.
Right.
Like the whole thing is just, one of those disinformation little things. So I just wanted to get that out there. But
yeah, I'm aware of that.
what do you think about the Super Bowl, Jay?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if maybe Owen and I were going to talk about it, I'm not sure, but there was obvious symbolism in the fact that you had this choir, right, of robots, and then you have all these people sort of walking, in step like drones, and then they all collapse after staring at their cell phones, and they've got surgical masks on. I was starting to think that maybe next year they're going to mandate that we have to wear surgical masks to cover our whole face or whatever. So yeah, I think it was just preposterous. It wasn't even a good performance, and it was pretty much. I mean, the red and the black to me suggested either something communistic or perhaps Church of Satan. I don't know.
Well, people I feel like are getting more aware of the fact that there's this symbolism. And thanks to your work, thanks to Alex Jones, thanks to just people, spreading messages about this or dissecting what they're seeing. It seems like, the halftime Super Bowl show used to be like a full-on, like, satanic ritual, right? And do you think now the people in charge are sort of tempering their symbols? Do you think they're sort of pulling back a little bit because so many people are waking up and becoming aware and actually looking out for this stuff?
I would have thought so, maybe, but no. There was so if you go back a few years, it was Coldplay and Beyonce's was like a Black Lives Matter march thing when she performed, and then Coldplay's was Everybody Be One Global. That was their whole theme. And then it was something, I don't remember, I'm not a huge Super Bowl fan, but the last one that I remember was the Shakira, J-Lo, Wine Mom strip dance.
Very weird,
Get your daughters to strip, right? And then we have this, and this one to me looks like it's, it's about us being drones. It's about us being mind controlled, and we don't even know it. And that's what they usually like to do in those big Super Bowl high profile ritual events, is to really throw it in your face. Think back to when Pink literally was in, I don't know if it's the VMAs or MTV Awards or whatever, but she's up there literally undergoing a Masonic initiation ritual with her, sleeve or her pant leg hiked up, and she's got the blindfold on, and she's doing like this, and there's the noose around her neck. I mean, very obviously a Masonic initiation. Lady Gaga hanging there bloody as a sacrifice. There's one from Taylor Swift where she was being initiated in this eyes wide shut style ritual in the UK. So I think they are absolutely 100% throwing that ritual initiation stuff in our face.
Yeah. The other thing that Scott from Texas, thanks for the call, Scott, he mentioned was the Bill Gates video. And I know we've all seen it. And I've heard a little bit about it not being legitimate, but I was never really able to confirm whether it was totally fake, totally false, or whether it was not, it wasn't Bill Gates, but it was real. What's the background on that?
So there was a video going around from around the mid 2000s, and it was this idea that the Pentagon it was a guy giving a lecture, and it was supposedly that the Pentagon had developed a a vaccine that could erase the religious fears in the brain.
Right, the fun vax. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it eventually morphed into this idea that that was Bill Gates, and that was all disinformation. But I do think that presentation was a real presentation about some kind of inoculation that could do that. I don't know if it was the Pentagon or where it was, but I mean, that's been floating around for a long, long time.
Yeah, because the video seemed real for me. I can usually tell if something's...
But it's not anything to do with Bill Gates or whatever.
Right, yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with Bill Gates. But, and of course, even if that presentation was totally fake, we do have very real scientific evidence where they're like, we can shut off parts of the brain with magnets, and it makes you less faithful and all this sort of stuff. So the science is real, whether that presentation is real or who's involved in it. Yeah. It might just be a nice little illustration of something that could have happened. Yeah, and here's the video.
So it is a real presentation, but you can't really tell who's up there giving the presentation, but that's not Bill Gates.
Right, and it's not Bill Gates, and so that allows them, because people say it's Bill Gates, they're allowed to say, nope, totally fake, totally false, it's not Bill Gates. And it's like, well, that's not really the important part. The important part is that they've developed a vaccine.
That is the thing, yeah. I mean,
get rid of religion.
You get into the history of DARPA and the Pentagon. I mean, they've been studying this stuff since their inception. I mean, the whole history of mind control is directly connected to, like, brain chip interface stuff. Right. Back to the 30s, 40s, 50s. So there's no doubt that that's the kind of thing that they study and research. And there's been a lot of public articles that have come out about DARPA developing stuff that wipes memories and whole centers of the brain. I went on a date with a girl one time who had undergone a surgery.
Really?
She had a traumatic memory that was like, they pinpointed where the memories are stored for certain things, and they had, like, I don't know, snipped it out or what.
Wow,
they did.
that's creepy.
I don't think she was lying. I mean, she's like, I had a traumatic event, and it bugged me all the time, and I just wanted to have it out of my head. And so she's like, I went into this free experimental surgery and blah blah blah.
Wow, that's incredibly creepy. And I mentioned earlier today that interview with Mike Wallace and Aldous Huxley, where he's talking about they'll make you be happy when you oughtn't be happy. And one of the things he was discussing back in 1956 was, at that point they already had nodes that they could install into your brain and basically activate your dopamine or your serotonin or whatever it is to make you happy, even though the situation that you're in actually should be miserable. So for at least 50, 60 years, this technology has been available. To think that they have not been continuing this research, or that they aren't actually using it, is pretty far-fetched.
One of the popular psychonauts has a whole chapter in his book on his research into the chip brain interface. Dr. John Lilly, if you read his autobiography, John C. Lilly, he has a whole chapter on how, like, he was doing the float tank stuff, and he thought that was really interesting. And then when he started doing the brain chip stuff, he says that's when the Navy and the ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence, and the CIA and all these people came to him and said, was like, oh, we like this brain chip stuff. So
yeah, well, it's very tempting for people that want total control to use their mind control. And then I did a big thing last year about I always forget his name, the Jonestown and Jim Jones, and how that was all connected to the mind control experiments that were being carried out in mental institutions in the 70s.
You and Cameron.
Yeah. And it's all very creepy. Well, we'll go to more of your phone calls on the other side. We'll start with Dennis in New Hampshire about the need to get vocal about resisting. Stay with us, folks. It's American Journal, Infowars.com, and Band.video. Share these links.
You're tuned in to the American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith. Watch it live right now at Band.video.
2008 with a primate is have it learn through trial and error that by thinking it can move a robotic arm and feed itself. It didn't take too long for the neural interface issue to be resolved once people figured out you could implant electrodes on brain tissue and then take a biological signal and turn it into an electrical signal and amplify it. The monkey would begin to experiment and would think about where it wanted the arm to go. So it was learning, I have a new appendage. The same is true in people. As you can see, just 4 years later, we see it being done in humans.
45 minutes ago, I got to use a robotic arm for the first time, and we got to reach out and touch somebody for the first time in 7 years.
It also has some fun implications. If you see now, where do you imagine this going when you think of it as an offensive or defensive opportunity with respect to the intelligence community? The natural segue then would be, if I can send motor function from a brain to a mechanical arm, is it possible to send motor functions from one human to another human? So I call it the possession experiment. But essentially what's happening is when one person is playing the video game, they're not using their hands. They're simply looking at targets. What's going on in the other room is a transcranial magnetic stimulation device that creates a magnetic field that excites neurons. And it's the other man's hand that begins to move and hits the targets. So you've co-opted the portion of a body of another human, and then their hand can behave in the way that you want it to do. But the person on the receiving end described the sensation as rather odd. He said, I didn't know anything until I saw my hand beginning to move, and felt that it was something other. And its hand was moving. The hand could punch in a code. The hand could do a number of things. But the really fun part was that you're taking over somebody else's physical body with the mind of another human.
So there you go, the possession experiment. And this was a presentation that I guess was given to the Defense Department about how this could be weaponized. And that video is within a larger video from Way of the World called Creating a New Human for a New Global Order. So all of this ties in together, doesn't it, Jay?
It does. I was remembering the book by Jose Delgado, which is Physical Control of the Mind. And so the irony is that pretty much all of these MK Ultra doctors, you can still find their books. They all have public published books, even to the point where you can find Dr. Westerbrooks has a famous piece that he published on splitting personalities through these kinds of techniques, and that was actually published. That's still in the DSMV, as far as I know. I looked a couple years ago. So this is all public. It's been there for a long time. It's just people don't know that, and so I'm not surprised that they have expanded the mad science craziness to, try to have some guy who's like controlling.
Yeah, literally. I mean, yeah.
The guys in the control room, like they have my chip in.
Right, incredibly creepy.
Like
literal flesh puppets. Yeah, right. in case. Just being a figurative puppet wasn't enough for them. Of course, my guest, Jay Dyer, at J_D007 on Twitter. His website, jaysanalysis.com, where he gets into all of this stuff and more. And we want to go out to the phone calls because you have questions for him or comments that perhaps he can respond to. Dennis in New Hampshire wants to talk about the need to get vocal about resisting. Thanks for calling in, Dennis. You're on the air with Jay Dyer. Dennis, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you, Dennis. Yes, you're on the air.
Okay, you're good. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Of course, this is a little different than where Jay, my initial comment and what I wanted to talk about, but it can pertain. One of the things that woke my eyes up months and months ago during the summer, I go to church regularly, and I watch the parents march their little children up with their masks dutifully on, positioning it, 2-3-year-old kids. And it just struck me as what's going to happen 15, 20 years from now when this generation of 3, 4, 5, 10-year-old children that are paranoid, just have this paranoia fear drilled into them, this germ. What's going to become of society? Now, that being said, I immediately, when I started to think about this, said, you know what? There's only one way to fight this. Every single solitary person has to be vocal. Yes, it's okay not to wear the mask. You don't believe in, and I don't believe in wearing the mask either. I think it's a lot of First off, people spend more time touching their face, adjusting it,
right,
when they wear the mask than if they didn't have the mask.
Yeah.
So with that being said, what my approach is I get vocal about it. I go to the store, and if I see the red arrow going this way, do not enter, I stand there and I wait until there's a, I don't draw a crowd, but I will soon. For what I tell you, I say, I'm going this way because I'm told this is not what I'm supposed to do. Oops, I guess I'm going the wrong way. And then when I'm walking through a store and it says you must wear a mask, guess what I say? I'm not wearing a mask. And I got to tell you something. I would say 50% of the people or more, they just break out laughing. What they have their mask on was their followers, just
right.
like sheep. People gotta stand up and get vocal about this.
Yeah, and that's distinctly American of you, I would say. Thank you so much for the call, Dennis. So Dennis touched on a couple points there, Jay, that we'll get your comment on. Obviously, the use of fear, the effect this is having on children, and then are we losing as Americans this come and take it attitude, this sort of rebellious attitude that's always been an aspect of our DNA as Americans? Are we losing that?
I mean, aren't we like Lewis and Clark? Aren't we people that go on expeditions and adventures? I mean,
we used to be, yeah.
Right? Could you imagine the idea? We were talking about this when I was at church a while back. The idea that people who even go to church think that this is somehow, they're going to get sick at church, and so imagine going to the great physician, Jesus. Right. And wearing your mask, walking up to Jesus to be healed.
Right.
Right. But you don't want to give Jesus COVID. Right. So like he's the great physician. It's just that silly. Right. I mean, that's the point of going to church is right. You're there to be healed, both physically and spiritually. So I just think it's absurd. It's the weirdest psyop I've ever seen. Like it's so global. It's so in everyone's face. It's just amazing. I've never seen anything like this. And I've studied psyops for a long time.
Right.
This one is just unbelievable.
Totally overbearing, right? And what I keep trying to express, or at least trying to figure out for myself, is how all of these different things tie in together. Because I don't think it's any coincidence that we saw COVID at the same time that we saw the Black Lives Matter riots break out, at the same time that we saw the voter fraud. I mean, they all tie into each other, right? And do you think it's just now that people are starting to wake up, and they had that setback with Trump for the globalist plans to move forward? Are they just desperate to try to get back, to where they were and try to prevent sort of people from rebelling against them? What do you think it is that's caused last year and now into this year the insanity to just ratchet up 100 times? Any ideas? It's
that we're at this crucial point where they want to move to the next phase of the plan.
Right.
It's that age of transition I was talking about yesterday. So they have to bring in all this chaos. And then even to the point of made up crises, right? I mean, think about climate change. That's a great example of a huge, scam that's not even a real threat. But most of the left, half the population operates under this false notion that, we just existing are damaging the environment. And so you notice this pattern over and over of crisis, 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 crisis. All the global elite books talk about crisis. And so they'll even invent these crises, and that's what it is. It's just fear, straight up, just controlling people by fear, because most people are controlled by fear.
Right.
Right. So, yes, that's why they have to sort of grind that out of us, break our will, as they just recently said. And the breaking of that will, I think, is what is one big purpose of the mask. And they'll do that. You can read about the Soviets and these different tyrants who would do this kind of absurd stuff. It was making me think of how in gulags, like they would say, okay, move this pile of rocks from here to here, and then you do that all day, and then like, okay, now move it back.
Right.
And it's absurd. It's meaningless to degrade and dehumanize and sort of break you down.
Yeah,
That's
and
the purpose.
Of course, we were talking about Jonestown and the idea that my whole thing is like they're indoctrinating us into a death cult, and that's one of the primary tools of cults. A lot of time for brainwashing is you get your flock to truly believe in the absurd, so they'll accept very readily the stuff that isn't quite as absurd but just as damaging. It's we're literally being indoctrinated into a death cult using our fear as a lever to shove us into that. More with Jay Dyer on the other side, folks. Final segment of American Journal. Stay with us. Final segment of American Journal, Infowars.com. The Alex Jones Show begins at 11 a.m. I'm sitting here with Jay Dyer, his Twitter at J_D007, his website, jaysanalysis.com. Does amazing stuff with Esoteric Hollywood. His books, Esoteric Hollywood 1 and 2, are sort of great primers on how to decode the symbolism that we see shoved in our faces from every direction. And there you have the Bitcoin header. We talked a little bit about Bitcoin a little bit earlier. What's your read on Bitcoin now? And it's in the news so much.
I'm happy. I got interested in 2017, and initially, as I was telling you, I was very skeptical. I wrote some articles critiquing it, saying I thought it was a scam. And then I changed my mind the more I got into it, and I realized that, I mean, as with any technology, it can be used for good or for evil.
Right.
A gun can be used for good or for evil. And then I realized that this is much more than a monetary network or a thing to make money. This is actually something revolutionary that we've never seen in the history of the world. This is a way to store not just value and energy over time without loss, but even ideas, even things that like information and knowledge, so that it can't be erased.
Right.
You understand that that's what that can be. The potential for that is amazing. There's never been anything like that.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of callers talk about that when we're sort of brainstorming how to prevent voter fraud. People say that process is one way that could be actualized. And then it also goes to the heart of the issue, right? Is that, and we were talking in the break, so I can't remember what we talked about on air or what we talked about during the break, but we were talking about the monetary system, how it's not all about money. These people aren't trying to make money. They have all the money. So, money is just a system of control for them that they can use and exploit. And this sort of goes to the heart of that, right? Of course, Ron Paul, the great, cut off the head of the snake, end the Fed. And that's what Bitcoin is helping to do.
Well, I talked to a guy last night who is a super duper knowledgeable, longtime engineer, pro Bitcoin type of person. And this is essentially what we're talking about, was that he was pointing out that people think this is just like a stock or some sort of thing that you're trading, and they don't understand how revolutionary the technology is.
Right.
And it took 2 engineers explaining this to me, not money guys, which I initially heard about it through Max Kaiser, which is fine because they got me interested in it. And Max did kind of convince me to get into buying some several years ago. But when I understood the engineering philosophy of Bitcoin, that's when I really was like, oh, then the light comes on. You realize what this actually is. It's like the Library of Alexandria online, and it can't be destroyed because, it's a decentralized network. So you can't, my books, they could burn my books. They can delete my books. And, the internet is turning into a thing where they literally, like 1984, erase history.
Yeah.
So how do we preserve for future generations? Well, the potential for the blockchain is that kind of a thing, to be a Library of Alexandria that's also a transfer of value, also a store of value, also a store of representation of human energy, because everything else, fiat, it just bleeds and leaks your energy right through inflation over time, which is theft.
Right. Yeah.
So once I understood that that's really what this is, the potential is amazing.
All right, so let's go out to, we'll try to do one more phone call here before we have to close it down with Jay Dyer. Let's go to Daniel in Texas, who wants to talk about the Jesuits and Trump. I hear a lot of talk about the Jesuits. I don't maybe understand it as well as others, but thanks for calling in, Daniel. You're on the air with Jay Dyer.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Hey, I want to go all the way back to 2016 debate. When I was hearing Trump talk about border walls and stricter immigration from radical Islam countries. And me being a U.S. Army vet, that appealed to me. So I've been a Trump supporter ever since, okay? At that time, I had no idea about Alex Jones or InfoWars or anything. I basically hadn't been red-pilled yet, okay?
Right.
Then I go to a new congregation. I get involved with Elder Jerry Heelan out in Atlanta, Texas. And Jay, I would like to refer a book of his to you. I think you would enjoy it. It's called The Spirits Like Frogs Identified. I'm recommending that to the world right now by Elder Jerry Heelan. And you can find that at www.yea777.org.
All right, well, we're kind of running out of time here, Daniel. So do you have a question for Mr. Dyer?
Yeah, man. Kanye Trump calls Trump his brother in dragon energy. The OK sign that they used to throw up said was white supremacy. Everybody behind the knows that's 666. Every time Trump made a major point, he would do the OK sign. He was swearing to the 666 when he did that. All right, he went to the school of Jesuits. I know his dad was a big Sean Birch guy, but he's just a puppet too. He don't give a crap about us. He never did. He's just a good actor. He got tuned up on The Apprentice. He got his tune up.
All right. Yeah, I think we got your point, Daniel. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we're running out of time here. Thank you so much for the question. What's your read on Trump, Jay? Controlled opposition, an actor controlled by somebody. What's your read on that?
I always saw Trump as somebody who represents kind of the older Americana. And so even though he had a lot of connections to, powerful elite people, that's because he's obviously a rich guy. He's done a lot of wheeling and dealing in New York. I don't think you can be a powerful billionaire out of New York without some wheeling and dealing. But I think what he represents and certain power structures and influence that don't want to see America move into the total full-on Brzezinski level globalism, that's why he was a problem. So regardless of his motives, regardless of what he did wrong and right, and I think he did a lot of good things, better than any president I can think of, And yes, he had some failures as well, but I think that he just represents a stumbling block, even just as a symbol.
Right.
Even as a meme, he's a stumbling block. More so, it's almost like, the Sam Hyde meme. It takes on a life of its own.
Right.
In the same way that Trump is a meme, is an image that goes beyond Trump, and what it represents has to be destroyed.
Yeah. And he woke up a lot of people.
Exactly.
I know I was always a libertarian. I sort of always bought the open borders argument until I heard Trump sort of elucidate exactly what open borders was about. And so it changed my mind. So I know he's had a big impact against.
How can he keep getting away with it?
I know. Somebody's got to stop him one of these days. So, Jay, what are you doing right now? What are you working on? Or are you, I know you're sort of traveling around Texas a little bit. Is that going to continue, or are you headed back home after this?
No, it's pretty much done. Coming to see you guys is kind of the last leg of this, but we're going to continue doing talks on theology, the Gospel of John. We're going to continue doing Global Elites books. That's kind of what I do is basically I read these gigantic tomes and then, summarize it for people, because a lot of people don't have time to read this kind of stuff. So I do your homework for you, right? I'm your nerd who, you come to me and I'll give you the answers, and then you go cheat when the test comes on, multiple choice or whatever. But
yeah, I noticed that whenever you do a debate, you have these big tomes and they have like post-it notes all the way throughout, and you go, that guy actually read that whole book.
The joke is that I just put this post-it notes in there and I'll actually read the books.
You're right.
It's just fake. It just looks like I read the books, but
you do read the books.
I do.
You do the homework so other people
my
don't
wife can attest that I do actually read the books. But so we're going to continue working through those. I mean, we've done about 45 or 50 of those, everything from Bertrand Russell, H.G. Wells, Jonas Salk, Jacques Attali, Brzezinski, Rockefellers, that kind of stuff. And then I've got a book coming out hopefully this year pretty soon, dealing with philosophy and debates and arguments for the existence of God. That'll come out probably maybe the next 6 months. And then a lot of people, a lot of people said, when is Stark Hollywood 3 coming? So I may have to go ahead and do Stark Hollywood 3. But just continue churning out the content.
That can all be found at jaysanalysis.com and on Twitter at J_D007. My final question to you, what do you see happening in the next year? Do you have any predictions for where this all goes? I mean, all my predictions are rather dismal.
Yeah,
I don't see it slowing down. I see the control ratcheting up. You mentioned it earlier, like they want to move to the next level. The illustration I was using was like they're like revving the engine because they're about to shift gears up to that fourth or fifth gear of global control.
Exactly,
and that's what I see. Any predictions for the next year?
New absurdities. I saw people out literally wearing 2 and 3 masks. I don't know how they're getting around. Like, how do you? Their masks wear masks, and their masks wear masks, and the mask wear it. So it's like meta level,
Mask on mask. Yeah. Any attempt for us to pull back somehow, or are we just trying to like throw speed bumps in front of the racing?
Somebody was saying that like Biden's. I think maybe Roosh was saying Biden is actually a good thing because it's going to put people back in the mode of like seeing how bad it is, and that's going to hopefully wake more and more people up. So that's my hope, is that it's just going to be so absurd that we can maybe gain a few more open-minded people, wake them up. But I'm afraid that economically, monetarily, we're going to see a lot of money printing. I think we're going to have bad economic times, is my suspicion.
Yeah, and maybe the only hope we have is that enough people wake up and realize what's going on and do things in their own lives that can help combat this. And then all together, hopefully as a snowball rolling down a hill, we can get the momentum we need to stop this train in its tracks. Well, thank you so much for being with us. That's Jay Dyer on Twitter at J_D007.